Greetings, everyone. I thought I should make a movie review on Undead, just to settle maybe a little bit of confusion from the top 5 list I made earlier. You see, just because it was on the top 5 weirdest videos I've seen, doesn't mean it was a movie I actually liked. There's actually a few different reasons why this movie absolutely sucks. Well, I can't really say it sucks completely, but for the majority of this, it blows shit. This is an Australian horror film, and you might recognize that you don't actually see a lot of Australian horror films in Blockbuster. Not to say all Australian movies are bad, there probably are a few good ones out there, but for horror films I have to question them, especially with this example. First of all, let's just go over the plot a minute. We've got a meteor crashing into the Earth, and anyone hit by this, which I've mentioned in my top 5 list, gets turned into zombies. The zombies go around trying to kill all the people that are still alive, and there is a group of survivors, 6 in fact, that are trying to outlast this invasion, and at some point you get introduced to, of all things, aliens. I don't know why. There really wasn't a good explanation of it, but they're just there. And oddly enough, it turns out that the farmer involved in all this seems to know something about the aliens. You'll get a little explanation about this later on, but he keeps everyone else in the dark for the most part, except giving ominous bits of wisdom, like, we must get prepared, they will keep coming. And really, how does he know this? He's a farmer who owns a gun shop, and he doesn't look like the kind of guy who watches TV. He looks more like the kind who sits at a radio waiting for the aliens to call. And for some reason, he's this uber fighter. He uses 3 shotguns welded together to fight off these hordes, and he's got relentless weapons hidden everywhere, both in his home and on himself. You actually do have other characters like the husband and wife. The wife is pregnant. How lovely for her. And her husband is trying to help her stay alive. Now that's reasonable. Then you have the woman, the main character, who's kind of strong-willed, but in this situation she's just not that great at keeping herself together. I mean, she holds her own, but against zombies she's a little klutzy. She's got to deal with these other 3 characters, and on top of that, 2 police officers, one of which must have just gotten on the force because she is a complete ditz. She doesn't even know how to fire a gun, apparently. And the other one just spews out profanity, and he's apparently the sergeant of this whole thing. At least he has a sergeant's title. Personally, I would have never let this guy on the force. And the zombies, probably one of the bad points of this, they have pretty much ridiculous makeup. I mean, it's okay, they're zombies, so you can play around with the options a bit, because there's not really a solid standard for them exactly as far as how they should look. But their actions, they wander around like they're drugged up, and then they have seizures all the time, and they play this convulsion action that they've got in high speed, so that you just see him just bouncing around in place. It's ridiculous. And the special effects for the blood and gore are absolute shit. I mean, seriously. It looked like these guys had a big budget that they could spend all this money on, and actually, it does look like they put effort into the special effects, like the blood and gore. The problem is, it doesn't work. When you watch a head get decapitated in this film, it just doesn't look right. The head suddenly disappears, and then blood comes spewing out. It just doesn't work in the way that they do it. It's just awful. And when you see people with holes in their chest, you can obviously tell that there's some really good special effects going on here, but they don't make it work. That's the problem. They have the money, they just don't have the talent to use it. It's not the worst I've ever seen. When I saw Sleepy Hollow High, that had the worst, because they did a slow-mo of blood spewing onto this guy after his girlfriend got decapitated, and you could see quite clearly that there was something getting squirted at him. The blood was being squirted from one single spot, but they had it flailing around so it looked as though it was hitting him as a big gush wound, that it all happened at once. But when you slow it down, you can see it's a steady stream. They didn't really do that for this, but really, it's like the same talent, only with a higher budget. Which means there really wasn't that much talent to begin with, but they're going to use the money anyway. The environments weren't bad, though. I mean, the houses and locations, they really fit well. This dark, grim kind of feeling that you get from it is very nice for a zombie film, and they played up pretty well. The farmer's house, I can't even remember the guy's name, not that I want to. His house is pretty decrepit, old wood, kind of creaking old place where you'd expect to find people coming out of the walls trying to kill you. A lot of dust and cobwebs and stuff like that, and he even has a bomb shelter where he can go down there and survive for a long time, and it fits his character pretty well. The store was a nice spot too. It really was a natural feel, but in this zombie scenario, it worked pretty well. Now comes the fun part of the actors. Their roles were played out well, but their acting really sucked. I mean, the interaction of the cops with everyone else, they're trying to get authority. That's understood. The farmer's trying to fight the authority because he's got this macho attitude, but he also has this knowledge of what's going on. So that makes sense too. And other people and their interactions, they do that well. I'm not ripping them on that. It's the acting of the individual persons that's the problem. I mean, seriously, the cop, I've already complained about it, his language. It's not that I hate the F word. It's when I hate it when it's literally, he says the F word, then he says another word, then he says the F word. Come on! And the farmer's just this, I don't even know what to say about him, other than the fact he's just really droning and trying to say that he's got this attitude that'll get him through. I really don't care for that, seriously. He's already got guns literally coming out of his ass. It's really unnecessary for him to be like that. The other characters, they're pretty much okay, but they could be better. My final thoughts on this movie is that there was a lot that was unexplained, like the whole purpose of the aliens, why they were there, why they were doing what they were doing. The props were really stupid. If you see these things, they're just really bad, and they kind of fit in with the makeup, which is also really bad. I don't know if that was what they were going for, but if they were, they really hit the mark on that one. The realism was pretty good, and that was the saving grace for this, if there is any. I kind of like the realism, but all in all, this is a thumbs down from me. It just doesn't work as a whole.